So now we'll just have a little outlook on the setup of the lab as far as the instrumentation and the peripherals are concerned. Now, my first question would be that why do we need this proper things as such? The reason is that when we are handling the gametes, we are exposing them to a number of nuances. And anyway, whenever, howsoever small a lab for as far as cell culture is concerned, we have to protect them from what we term as your epigenetic agents. Now, epigenetic agents are those which we can't see, but they definitely have an effect on the genetic implications of the outcome. Now, those are air, VOCs, COCs, SPMs, UV light of the sun, humidity and moisture. Now all these gametes are extremely sensitive and we cannot judge the extent of damage which is taken into them till in the last, when the couple doesn't show positive pregnancy, or if a child is also implantation is there is a miscarriage at some time, so something somewhere has gone wrong. Now our logic is that when we are setting up of an IUI lab or an IVF lab, there are certain parameters which are common for the both, especially the construction part, the air quality management, etc., etc. So we just go through it. Now this is basically what our goal is. We just want to capacitate the sperm, inseminate it, or even you can use the same sperm when we are doing another advanced procedure like an IVF or ICSI. Because I have seen it many places. They just brand the labs as IUI ka procedure hai, jara kar do na. No. Whether it's an IUI procedure, an IVF or ICSI, the sperm preparation needs the same amount of respect. And believe me, a well-prepared sperm will definitely improve your chances by 15 to 20% in any of the procedure which you use. Right? So our aim is washing and subsequent capacitation. And now the environment. Why do we need a good environment? Of course, last bulleted points, the embryologist contribution is quite important. And over here is we manage the patient's expectations. Now many a times we explain to the patient, oh, this happened, the eggs fertilized, but they did not cleave. The patient says, sir, we don't want to hear all that nonsense. Just tell me a reason why I am not pregnant, period. Now it's not possible within our foray to explain endocrinology to each and every patient. Because nowadays, they are a little Google conscious and now they are more litigation conscious. So if there is a nuance when we tell them, they say, if this was the problem, why the hell did you recruit me? You should have not done my cycle as such. So we have to be very careful as to what we exactly explain to them. So apart from this, the patient expectations are huge. So wherever the bottom line of an ART is, never ensure a pregnancy. Always tell them that we are optimizing the chances of you becoming pregnant. Correct? That's the most important part. Now, we come across contamination control. Now, there is not any lab which will be absolutely 100% sterile. Let us be brutally honest about it. But what we have to do is, we have to select certain spots or areas where we actually do the procedure. They have to be enforced with a strict sense of regulation. And what we are doing is, we are learning or modulating ourselves to take or to adapt to the conditions which are given to us. So that's why I've written, our challenge lies with the ability to cope up with the existing condition as such. So what we are doing is we have standardized our procedures. Because in every lab, what will be the ultimate outcome? We want a good embryo at the end of 5 days or a good blastocyst at the end of 5 days, a good sperm wash recovery at the end of every semen wash, having a good 24-hour survival rate, capable of fertilization. So what the most important part is, our specification when we set up a lab, location, gadgetry, media and disposables. Why do we need to be specific? Because these are the procedures. We retrieve the gametes, we process, we make them survive and make them viable. And most importantly, we maintain the DNA integrity. That's the most important part. And the sad part is, there is no parameter by which we can monitor it. It's an unseen thing. Now a proper planning. Now what does a proper planning tell us? A proper planning is even good for the patient's confidence. Believe me, nowadays patients come and just like we go to a 5-star hotel and we request कि भाई जरा कमरा दिखाया ना कैसा है, they tell us, sir, take a tour of the lab, show us what all equipments you have. Now they don't understand from 1 to 2 what the equipments are, but the thing is, they are mindful by the other people, oh, we have this, we have that, without this your procedure will be incomplete. So that's why the demands are much more. Without the knowledge exactly what it is needed for. So definitely we have to cater into the demands. So the expectations are quite high. I agree. An infertile patient is financially, physically, and emotionally traumatized. And they would say yes to everything which will help them increase their faith or trust into you, especially as far as obtaining a pregnancy is concerned. So, proper lab planning is important, correct? It's like preventing like a turn-off. A couple walks into your consulting room, sees a very shabby reception counter, the receptionist is a little crude and rude. So if you find out certain blogs, I'm sure that you must have heard of Dr. Anirudh Malpani, a very senior embryologist and infertility. He has mentioned in his books, the first plus point is what? The way the patient talks to your secretary or your secretary talks to the patient. That will really infuse a little bit of confidence in the patient, that yeah, somebody is there to answer me. You should not be rude and crude. The hostile approach has to be out, because remember, the patients are coming, they're thinking that you are the last hope. Got my point? So there are a number of factors. So this all reduces the patient's anxiety, eliminates confusion, comfort zone assurance, and all the stress releasing factors. Now, this is a generalized thing, whether it's an IUI lab or an IVF lab. Because it's an IVF lab, your IUI is a part and parcel of it. Now, usually when we set up labs, what do we do? For the convenience of the patient, we set up near a railway station or a bus station, so the convenience becomes easy. But ideally, that's a very wrong thing we are doing, because we are saturating it in a place which is most contaminated. And unfortunately, in many things, we are not aware of what the existing scenarios are. Believe me, in Western world, when they set up labs, now their lab is not like a simple one-floor, one-story structure. There is a whole institution or a building. It is intentionally set outside the outskirts of a city in a clean, pristine environment. And the rules are so strict that when the construction takes place, there is a guarantee that for the next 5 to 7 years, within a radius of 1.5 kilometers, no construction will ever come across. So these much strict are the construction. Construction pattern, construction materials, aerodynamic designing of the building, earthquake-proof foundation, fire-retarding materials, all these go into the construction of the labs across. Now, what we have to follow? Total quality management. These are all the guidelines. And why do we have a design and organization? Because these are the reasons. Because we have to justify. Tomorrow, we cannot say, okay, sir, this was there, but unfortunately there was a severe power outage in my department, the lights were not there, the incubator shut off, so sorry, we lost all your embryos. Believe me, in fire safety, in case of an emergency of a fire, what are the first instructions given to all the lab members? What is the first thing you would try to retrieve and run? Any idea? Your cryocans. So each embryologist is made aware that you will take cryocan 1, go to the escape point. You will take, unless and until they are smaller versions, not the big jumbo ones. So fire safety is the biggest plus point today. Exit routes, allocation, then you can charge for your equipments. Okay, now this is important to be noted. So here what we see is just a floor plan. Now, gone are those days where labs were set up in housing societies. The drawing room used to be a pickup room. The kitchen used to be a cement collection room. Those days are gone. Rigid standards have set in. Space allocations have been set up. Certain sterile area, non-sterile area. Comfort zone to the patient. So your own hospital setup is the best place. Because you know your construction, you know your building, you know what is above, what is down. So when you place a lab or when you start a lab, Your peripheral environmental conditions plus your in-house building construction has to be of a prime importance. Now this is a generalized way, allocation of area. In the event of you starting your IVF lab or whatever lab tomorrow or day after or subsequently, these are the certain area-wise allocations. Now certain things are to suit to your convenience, like a pantry, nurse station, etc., etc. But certain things, because don't think that the larger your lab, the more spacious and more attractive it is. No, it's more traumatic. A small compact lab, believe me, there are conditions for an embryologist that 3 square meters in and around the laminar airflow is ideal for the work stress. Because even this is also stressed out as such. Intercommunications between 2 rooms, correct? The minimal chances of him going out and coming in, least he induces toxicity into the laboratory. For an IUI setup, these are as per the latest guidelines, what your lab should have all those modules inside. For an IVF ICSI setup, certain rooms are intercommunicated, like a cement processing lab connected to the embryology lab through a pass window, embryology lab on the other side connected through the pass window to retrievability of the oocytes. So the minimum stress not to go out, transit of the gametes is easy through the pass box or through a human chain. Embryology or semen preparation lab, this is the general area. Don't get carried away by what you hear across the street as such. Believe me, it is comparatively easy and cheaper. Now I'll tell you brutally honest, to process a semen sample from a raw sample, what is the maximum cost incurred by any laboratory? 2,000. Actually, the price inculcated, inclusive of disposable and media, is hardly 300 rupees. Like just as now the discussion between those Chinese restriction and American restriction, now slowly we come to know that how those reputed brands who are sold in thousands of dollars, they hardly take $20 or $30 to make. Agreed. The technology, the brain behind it, this is what we actually charge for. Because this is not everybody's cup of tea. Every semen sample has to be read properly before it is being processed. The technique, the modifications, the gadgetry. But at the same time, coming to the gadgetry, I am not telling you to buy the best and the latest. Buy those which are least traumatic to the gametes, which are which are capable of delivering the result as far as productivity subsequently is considered. Like in a semen wash, maximum recovery without compromising the motility, without inducing any mechanical trauma or genetic trauma, and survival of the best. Okay, so this is what your general idea for a semen preparation lab. Now, when we prepare a lab, because we are not aware of so many things which may be happening right under our nose. So therefore, the construction material is very, very important. Now, this is a little view from the IVF viewpoint, because you cannot exactly separate the IVF and the IUI scenario. Now, if you are having a huge infertility center, this is a part and parcel of it. So you cannot say कि नहीं मैं IUF में फिलहाल इतना ही बनाने वाला हूँ, बाकी का मैं IVF में concentrate करूँगा. You can't do that. It's a general unified version. So these are the things to be avoided, and why they are avoided, it's listed over here. Because these are all embryo toxic scenario. Reprotoxicity will be very high. Inadvertent damage without us knowing. So that's the reason many a times we see, अरे इतना अच्छा embryo था, transfer was so smooth, uterus was perfectly proliferated, post-luteal support was excellent, age was also to our advantage, still why the implantation? So these are the epigenetics which are taking place, which we are not able to monitor. Now, apart from the construction, initially it was what? Tiling with marbles, kadappas to give a lovely ambience. But they were also embryotoxic. Why? Because these are all calcium carbonate. They wear off with the time. When we clean them daily with alcohol, what we call chalking effect. You rub your hand, you get the powder on your hand. So there is SPM liberation in the air. Then came the question of aluminum sheets. People used to deck the walls, but the problem was what? Contamination between the wall and the aluminum sheet. Just like when you keep a false ceiling, the false ceiling looks fantastic, but we don't know the nature of the actual roofing beyond the false ceiling. So one fine day it comes crashing down both together. Then came vitrified tiles. Vitrified tiles are good, provided good quality, capable of witnessing the scrubbing with alcohol every day for the sanitation purpose. And now the latest was this modular version. Modular version is what? It's a little costly, no doubts about it. But it consists of those panels. They are SS stainless steel coated, galvanized iron coated, or aluminum powder coated with thick puffing, available in panels. So you have to preset your lab prior. Whether it's a complete transparent door, it's a French door, complete opaque door, you cannot do any joints or shelves or any civil work. Only 5 and 15 ampere plug points are made available for the gadgetry. Because nowadays, even in a lab, the concept of platforms and kadappas are gone. All our equipments are placed on very well documented stainless steel tables to help us facilitate the cleaning. नहीं तो क्या होता है कि kadappa पे incubator रखो वो वहीं पर वहीं पड़ा रहेगा, and the back side of the incubator keeps on collecting dust. Because we cannot, these are non-approachable zones as far as cleaning is concerned. Okay, so this is generally your essentials. In a semen analysis, your IUI lab requirements, and your most important disposable. Now here I have written a centrifuge. Now many a times in severe OAT, all semen samples won't be showing a sperm. So you write no semen no sperm seen, no sperm seen. A third report comes, 1 or 2 non-motile sperm present. Now that would raise suspicion. Now this is a case of sample skipping. So whenever you see a semen sample devoid of sperm, but a lot of debris and other things present, your gut feeling will tell you that there is a Charlie hidden somewhere in the semen sample. What you do? Spin the sample, check the pellet. 7 out of 10 times, from the pellet you will see 1 or 2 sperm present. They may be abnormal, they may be non-motile, but the presence of a sperm doesn't mean that the person is azoospermic. So you have to write a text report, a political one. No motile or non-motile sperm seen in the fresh sample, but the centrifuge pellet showed presence of few sperm. Kindly repeat the analysis to confirm the findings. Or if it is not seen, in both the cases, no sperm seen in the wet sample nor the centrifuge pellet, kindly confirm the semen analysis to ascertain the findings. So you are safe, at the same time you are sure. Okay, so this phenomena is called cryptozoospermia or hidden sperm. So your semen lab in an analysis should be present with a centrifuge, that's for sure. Now general air quality. Now in an IUI it will not matter that much, but believe me, air is the biggest troublemaker because it's a fantastical fluid material and it carries with it a lot of things: dust, dander, pollens, SPMs, etc., etc. Environmental air and the lab air. Environmental air contains what? CO2, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, automobile exhaust, fossil fuel burning. Whereas the lab air is more contaminated than the environmental air because the lab air is saturated with chemicals and organic pollutants. Lab air is cold because an ideal lab temperature is how much? 25 to 27 degrees. So the VOCs settle, they concentrate. Like for example, in a cold room, if you open a scent bottle, within a minute the whole room is filled with the scent's aroma. This is called vapor saturation potential. That's why no scents, perfumes, etc., etc. are allowed in the lab. No cleaning material is aromatic. So organic aromatic compounds are a big no-no. But what an irony, in a lab, to maintain the temperature of 37 degrees in the incubator, we have to maintain the temperature of the lab cooler. Reason is why? Because our incubators and gadgets are exothermic gadgets. They give out the heat. Just like your CT scan machines, sonography machines, X-ray machines, supercomputers, they are all kept in AC rooms. The moment AC is not working, aaj lab band hai. Simple as that. Because this is to optimize the functional capacity of the gadgets. Okay. Now air is important for all these 3 procedures. This is the ambient air with the concentration. This is how we classify the air. This is all based on pharma standards. We are over here, lab air is class 1000, incubator air is class 100. This is the general breakup of the air quality. Now, these are equipments which we need for a normal semen analysis. Let them be very simple, but quality has to be excellent. Like for example, a simple thing like a bench microscope. What does microscopic background is? Magnification, resolution, clarity, condenser, and aperture. If these things are justified, you will be doing all semen work on the bench microscope. Second thing, like in embryology, when you take the stereo zoom, it's like a carpenter's bench. You will be doing everything over there. Scanning, pooling, grading, denudation, insemination, embryo loading, oocyte classification, embryo classification. You got my point? So microscopy holds the key to success because ultimately we are doing is limited observation, not like a time lapse where you continuously monitor the whole progress, but of course that equipment comes at an astronomical cost. So these are your simple gadgets for your IUI lab. Okay, your LF. Now people always argue, अरे LF की क्या ज़रूरत है IUI में कौन LF खरीदेगा? You are handling a biological sample. You are manipulating it, you are mixing the media, you are aspirating, you are aliquoting. So at every step there is a chance of you contaminating the media in which you are subsequently gonna insert into the sterile uterus. So you don't want the uterus to be contaminated by your suboptimal preparation technique. Because if the uterus environment gets contaminated, the colony forming units will increase in a geometric progression, and the first thing is they will block the tubes. So you have made an otherwise fertile patient non-fertile, and you have recruited one more for your ART procedure. Correct? These are all the basic accessories. Now this is the reason why I have told you why an LAF cabinet. Now this is what we do. These are the characteristics of your LAF. Basic importance, HEPA filter, high efficiency particulate absorption. Because all these gadgets mimic our human system. Our nasal mucosa is capable of filtering particulate matter till 0.3 microns. Thinner, smaller than that, we get rhinitis. Okay? So these are big ones, small portable ones. You can eliminate air hazards by using your air quality filters. Now this is a jumbo Coda tower, not necessary for an IUI lab, because HEPA filter can filter suspended particulate matter. VOCs, COCs cannot be filtered by HEPA filter. They are filtered by certain filters which have got potassium permanganate and activated charcoal by the process of adsorption. And these saturation are the biggest culprits in a laboratory. Microscope I just discussed with you. I think counting chambers to be discussed. Okay, yeah, now this temperature is important. Temperature irony in a semen. When sperm are produced in the scrotal sac which are outside the body cavity, this is to compensate for the high body temperature. Scrotal temperature is 1 to 1.5 degrees less. Reason why? The acrosome DNA should not be traumatized by the increased body temperature. But there is one terrestrial mammal. That mammal has the testes in the body cavity. Can anybody guess? Male terrestrial mammal. Elephant. Elephant has testes in the body cavity. It doesn't have testes outside. Inside it is insulated by layers of fat. But once ejaculated sperm or any gamete, 37 degree is the ideal activation temperature. Hypo, hyper, both are detrimental. So even when we aspirate our oocytes in the collection tube, your tubes have to be pre-incubated at 37, or else you will be dealing an iatrogenic damage to the spindle which is present in the oocyte. So subsequently, post-fertilization, when your egg starts cleaving, the proportionality of dispersion of the chromosomes equally in both the blastomeres will be compromised. So you will get arrest either at 2 cell or 4 cell. And in sperm, hypo or hyperthermia will mess up the motility and the kinetics, apart from deactivating the acrosome in the head. Correct? So this is what this thing is. Anodized aluminum, you can put your tubes inside it, set temperature, functioning temperature. And remember, These are electronic gadgets. The moment you start them, the temperature will shoot up to 40, even if you're set at 37. And then it will drop down. That is called calibration. So don't start your equipment immediately, put the cement sample. You'll fry the sample at 40 degrees. The motility will immediately crash out. So let it stabilize and then you can utilize it. Centrifuge, as I just explained, very important gadget. Don't confuse between the G and the RPM. When the rotor is there, select the swing out rotor. Because if it's a fixed rotor, the pellet will be formed at the side. And when you take 1 ml of volume, half of the pellet will be outside. So when your swing out rotor is there, the pellet will be formed exactly at the bottom, especially in case of double density discontinuous gradient separation, where the pellet is of vital importance because already the sperm parameters are compromised. So we want to get the maximum out of the cement sample. So this is the difference, RPM versus G-force. Okay? We have got temperature controlled centrifuge. We have got our normal Remy centrifuges. And this is the inner part, the inner head, the buckets, the caps, swing out rotor. Incubation, very important. Whether you consider the heart of the lab, the uterus of the lab, the brain of the lab, incubation has to be there, especially in a sperm wash, in a swim-up method, post layering of the pellet, for the gentle release of the sperm from the pellet into the upper part. Otherwise else, for your IVF procedure, right from the pickup, post pickup incubation, incubation prior to injection, prior to insemination, cleavage pattern, 37 degrees. So your incubator should be very specific. Now suppose you are using only IUI. You are using a HIPPIS based media. So for that normal incubation, if you are using for IVF, where you are using bicarbonate buffered media, that incubation called equilibration. It's a chemical process which follows the biochemical principle of Henderson-Hasselbalch's law, where the pH is proportional to the percentage of carbon dioxide, altitude, and the bicarbonate into the solution. Okay? Logic is what? Why is pH important? So that it doesn't traumatize the cell osmotically. The osmotic stress, internal of a cell and external of a cell, is quite nearly the same. Because whenever a cell is traumatized, it will try its level best to compensate the trauma. But if it cannot control, then ultimately it crashes out. There is apoptosis. If in an embryo there is reduction in the developmental pattern, there is a slow progression, or there is cellular death. In the cytological term, it is called work-induced hypertrophy. So this is your plain incubator, your CO2 incubator. Now in incubation also, we have the box incubators versus the bench tops. Nowadays the bench tops are in more demand because everybody wants to do a blastocyst. All embryos don't go into the blastocyst. I am till date happy with a day 3 embryo. Believe me, a good morulation, compaction, that's the excellent case. Because what happens is, post day 3, till the blastocyst formation, the embryo is in an extremely sensitive condition, and many times we are not equipped with those conditions which can prevent that sensitive trauma. So it was like once the day 3 comes, we keep them in a bench top, media, layer with oil, and then let it grow further. 6 out of 10 cases, people have registered arrest at day 4. Instead, as long as your embryo was viable till day 3, you transfer them into the uterine environment. It can adapt itself. So there are also norms by which you can select, हाँ ये आगे जाएगा कि नहीं, depending upon your original egg collection, your sperm quality. Now you cannot say I'm doing ICSI for all in this OAT and expect all the embryos to go to the blastocyst. No. Already you are dealing with a compromised genome. So, actually you have to read into each and every case, because when we were taught embryology right from 95, prior to every case there was a meeting with the gynecologist. We used to discuss each and every goddamn case, what the pluses and minuses are. But here with the concept of those freelancing embryologists, they don't even know what the case is like. It's like I come, mechanically do, finito, that's it, GIG, God is great. Later on, let's see what happens. So, Important part, your media. Incubate or equilibrate. Cold chain during arrival. Cold chain during your maintenance. The fridge has to be temperature controlled. See that the contamination doesn't come in when you aliquot the samples. Or your density gradient, heavier, lighter gradient, and ultimately the sperm wash media. Okay? So this is in a bulleted form. I have listed all the media which you use, when and how. Like oocyte aspiration, it's same as flushing media, so it is incubated. Scanning or sperm preparation, again incubated. Once the zygote formation, it's a bicarbonate buffer till the zygote stage, 2-cell, 4-cell blastocyst. Or there is another media, from the zygote till the blast. It's like a buffet table, all the dishes are spread out, you eat what you want. But that also needs to be done. How, when, and why? It has to be changed. That depends upon the dexterity and the skill of the embryologist. Not because the textbook says so, but he has to see the condition prevailing at that moment. What does an embryo need at that time, and when and why I have to change it? This is CASA, computer-assisted semen analysis, a costly gadget. But I only like it for one reason, only for the morphology, because it gives an interface of nearly 300 sperm heads all in one shot. So we can cherry pick what exactly the general morphology of the head is. Otherwise, we trust our human eyes. Simple as that. Most important, cryopreservation. That's also a part and parcel of your lab. Preservation of sample. The logic is what? Availability of a sample in the absence of a person. Preservation of extra samples. ET being cancelled, preserve the embryos. Oocyte freezing. Donor banks. Principle, DNA integrity has to be intact pre-freeze and post-thaw. Because post-thaw the sample has to be viable and functionally viable. So we have got the canisters, BA means biological, T is the capacity of the tank, T is the transport which you store excess. This is a vapor shipper in case you want to ship the embryos from here to abroad. It's like a woolly material, absorbs the liquid nitrogen. It has a holding time, 24 hours, 48 hours, after which you have to immediately substitute them into the liquid canister. Labware, I think we discussed it much in detail. What it contains, these are what they are made up of. And these are the VOCs which are released from substandard materials or substandard equipments. Correct? So every disposable is marked with CE certification, batch number, expiry date, and in case of an SOS complaint, whom to call back as such. So sometimes you are given in a bulk, so we don't know what the condition, what the expiry date is. And sometimes when we argue this, sir, plastic mein kya expiry hoti hai? It's not that the plastic mein expiry hoti hai, the way in which it is sterilized, that loses it. It's like in a bottled water, they write the expiry date. The water doesn't get spoiled, but the plastic becomes now leaching into the water as such. So this is what you should maintain when you buy your disposables. Certain tips and tricks. Store them in clean plastic boxes, away from the sunlight, in a cool environment. List them, library effect properly, so that you don't have to rush every time. Even your sister in charge or your lab in charge can know which box contains what. And don't wait till the last batch gets over. Because 99% of the disposables are also imported, and many a times they run into a short of a scarcity. So whenever you are at the 7th number out of 10, it's time for you to order. So this is generally the list, which I think Madam had explained to you quite well, the disposables for an IUI. And this is what actually the gradations are for our disposables, because we are creating a life. So these are all the classifications, and we stand over here. Okay? Cleaning solutions. No aromatic phenyls or lysols with that lovely citric acid smell hovering across the lab. No. What happens is they will saturate the organic compounds. Now when you open your incubator, carbon dioxide will be reduced, the outside air will pump in. It will take more than 2-3 minutes for the incubator to come to the temperature. Till that time your embryos inside are messed up. So this is what we call it as a hurricane effect when it comes to air exchange. So select the ones which have got silver, because silver, what does it do? It chemically castrates the bacteria by breaking the thymine link in the DNA molecule. It doesn't kill the bacteria per se. Now these are your cleaning solutions. When we clean them, it's like a contact cleaning. So this is how the contact time, it can eliminate or neutralize bacteria, viruses and fungus. Because whenever we culture, there are two types of contamination. One is an induced contamination, which is fungal, and one is airborne contamination, which will give you that filament-like structures existing in a net-like effect. Correct? And please, log your events. Anything not logged means something hanky-panky is going in the lab. Today, out of 10 oocytes which you picked up, how many were mature, how many fertilized, how many cleaved, how many progressed, how many transferred, how many cryofrozen, how many discarded? So the last day figure should match with the retrieval on day 1. So that time you can be sure with the authenticity. Because many a times when the inspection people come, you know what the first thing they observe? They observe your cryocans. If they don't see any stored embryos, they are of the opinion, na, tum log kisi ko embryos bechte honge. But if you have a record, they'll suddenly lift up one straw and say, अच्छा उसका detail मेरे को pick up का बताइए. So you should have the same number, what is frozen and what you had written in your records. So this is the way we are tricked up as such. So please be totally confident. And the slightest mumble fumble in front of them means they have you in the trap. Though we may be on the right track, because sometimes the more genuine we are, the more we fumble as such. You lie confidently, you will get away with it. It's like that. So anyway, in spite of all these things, if you are not having the 2 gametes of a good quality, don't expect results. Your QA, QC, your lab setup, your gadgetry is not a magic box or a, I would say, magician's hat that you pull out a rabbit from it every time. Please, your good gametes, supported by good lab conditions, equipment, gadget, media, disposable pattern, you will get a success to it. Fine. So, okay. So thank you very much.